Happy to welcome Barbara McQuade in. Barbara McQuade, I'm a fan, and it's nice to meet you even from afar.
Well, thank you so much. I appreciate that very much. I'm glad to be with you.
One of the things I like about what you do on NBC and MSNBC and wherever I happen to see you, and I think it's one of the things you've done in the book, Attack from Within, is you're not screaming at people. You know, we all have disagreements, but when this country was at its absolute greatest, it's when we could disagree, even get elevated in our disagreements, but we at least heard the other side. And what you're trying to do here, in my view, is educate us on how to realize when we're being lied to in an age of lies.
Absolutely. You know, I don't think you can ever persuade anybody by browbeating them. It's something I certainly learned as a trial lawyer that, cases work best when you present people with facts, with analysis of perhaps your view of how those facts ought to be seen, and then let someone draw their own conclusions from those facts. But one important point about that, of course, is that we need to agree on what facts are. And I'm a believer that there is such a thing as truth and that we can know facts. As a trial lawyer, I had to rely on evidence when I made my arguments.
Isn't it amazing? I don't mean to interrupt you, but isn't it amazing that we live in an era where you had to say that sentence? And I totally get why you said it. But to say, I believe in truth, it's just crazy.
Yeah. And the reason I bring it up is I've had people push back and say things like, how is it that we can never know what facts are anyway? Who is in charge of the facts? Wow. Is there a disinformation police? And although, I can see that there are greater truths that are unknowable, the the meaning of life and intelligent life on other planets are things that may be beyond our human capacity to grasp. But there are facts that we can know. Was the light red or green at the time of the car accident? There are facts that we can know. And I think one of the real dangers of that other philosophy is that facts and truth are unknowable, is it allows people to operate in this area of ambiguity and to suggest that truth doesn't matter. This is something that, as I describe in the book, exists in Putin's Russia. This idea that the truth is unknowable, it's a fog of unknowability. The administration offers conflicting versions of facts. And so what happens is the people grow cynical and weary and exhausted and give up trying and disengage from political life altogether. And that's a very dangerous place to be in a democracy. I think we have a responsibility to learn the facts as best we can and to make informed choices about our government.
So, I mean, we could go back hi, Barbara, we can go back in the history and talk about, how facts and how lies are spread. And of course, there's all these different avenues we can go down. What was the tipping point for you when you said, I need to write about this?
Well, I teach a course in national security law at Michigan Law School. I spent my career as a national security prosecutor, and I've seen the threat evolve from Al-Qaeda to ISIS to now what I see as the greatest threat to national security is disinformation. And so I had been teaching my students about disinformation from foreign actors. My students read the Mueller report about the Russian influence campaign and social media and other things. But the evolution I'm seeing now is disinformation being used within the United States by political actors seeking to advance their political agenda or their personal agenda or their personal career. And so I see that attack now as, hence the name of the book, an attack from within. And so I wanted to write a book that is accessible to the public, understandable, and to explain to people what I'm seeing, these tactics of disinformation that have been used for centuries by authoritarians, but are now being so easily and rapidly spread through social media.
It's a New York Times bestseller, How Disinformation is Sabotaging America. Book's called Attack from Within. Barbara McQuade, NBC, MSNBC. Barbara, one of the things that's really disturbing to me, and I think it's at the core of the problem, is we no longer trust experts. And I always use the analogy, if I get on a plane, I'm not going to tell the pilot, I watched a YouTube video. I think I can take it from here.
Move over.
But we don't trust doctors, or we say we don't. We don't trust experts anymore. And if we don't trust experts, how do we get that back?
Yeah, I think it's a really dangerous thing. And it is, after being pounded with the message that unelected bureaucrats are the deep state and not to be trusted, and going after scientists and doctors is really disturbing. But I think that, the public believes things when we hear it from our leaders again and again. And it's a really dangerous thing because, of course, our civil service is a non-political career expert service that helps us with things like the power grid and the water supply and our nuclear codes and our nuclear weapons supply. We need to rely on those people to do their jobs and to do them well. How do we get back from that? I think by sharing with people information about what is accurate and what is not. I would love to see those organizations who are not in the business typically of patting themselves on the back, perhaps educate the public about what it is they actually do. I saw a piece in the Washington Post, it might have been today, with a short video about some of the people who work in government, people who work at the space station in Huntsville, Alabama, who used a missile to shoot down an asteroid that would have hit the Earth. People who are working to remove lead from our drinking water, people who are enforcing child labor laws against factories who are hiring children to do dangerous work. They're important people doing this work. And I think, one of the things on Donald Trump's 2025 agenda is something he calls Schedule F, which would be a new code in the civil service regulations that would allow him to fire 50,000 of these government experts and replace them with political appointees, which, one of the things that protects us from political whims is this career civil service.
Right.
And so I'm hopeful that by talking about it, I talk about it in my book, perhaps you who have a voice in the media can help remind people of the important non-political work that they do to protect all of us.
Yeah, and getting back to that trust question, because it does begin with trust, and maybe I'm in the 5 stages of grief in what America was. This doesn't feel like old man on the porch sipping lemonade stuff. This feels like a very different time, and factually, I could make that argument easily. But the idea being that if I'm in the 5 stages of grief, I don't even know what stage I'm in, other than if you make the logical conclusion, and I'm giving you the credit for logic, that no doctor is trustworthy or anybody that you've heard because of a Facebook post isn't trustworthy. How do I get you to the point where you at least consider they went to medical school, you didn't. They know how to fly a plane, you don't. I know how to be on the radio. I know how to do a talk show. You don't. I mean, that's the whole basis of society.
Well, yeah. And how do we get back to that truth base? Yeah.
I think, one of my goals with this book is to have a national conversation about truth. And that's why I'm so grateful for the opportunity to talk with all of you. I think that we need to get past the emotion that some in government have used to try to stoke division in society. This is a tactic of authoritarians, and it is to create divisions in society by hitting some of the hot button issues to get us angry and to get us embroiled in controversy. One of those things was how to respond to the COVID-19 pandemic. Certainly there were people who were hurt by shutdown orders and other people who were concerned about the health risks of the shutdown orders. Or of being around other people. And so that became an issue of divide. And so we had people stoking false claims about that. Now, certainly people in our government are not perfect, and there are people who are corrupt in our government. And when there's human error or human greed that is operating in public spaces, we have inspectors general, we have federal prosecutors who can root them out, state prosecutors, and remove them. But we cannot assume that all organizations are corrupt just because there may be individuals within them who make mistakes. There are checks and balances on society to protect against those things because we understand that humans are fallible. But we need to trust our institutions of government because that is how we are able to protect against abuse, protect against disease, protect against attack. And so I'm hopeful that we can have conversations where we aren't browbeating each other, but we are reaching across the aisle. And I think a couple ways of doing that is, number one, we have to not engage in some of the same snark that we see coming back at us. We can't own our opponents and try to browbeat people into submission.
Yeah, and
don't engage in it. That's key.
And accept that you may be wrong and be willing to look at some portions of your personal argument that might be wrong. Hypocrisy to me is a big piece of it as well. And it goes both ways. The Democrats used to slam George W. Bush for being a complete idiot who also happened to orchestrate a war. Well, that's what's going on with Biden now. He's a complete bumbling idiot but he has this deep state genius plan. You can't have it both ways. You got to pick a lane. He's either one or the other, and that is disinformation. Anyway, as I always say, Barbara, get 2, 3, 4 copies. You're careless, you'll lose one.
Give them away as gifts.
And give them away as gifts
book.
And spread the word.
Yeah. And
thank you both so much.
Yeah, we need to get through the us versus them divide too, and I think you talk about that as well in the book. So,
yeah, us. It's us.
Us versus them.
Yeah.
Let's get together and work together.
Yeah.
Yeah, be one.
Attack from Within, Barbara McQuade.
Thank you,
I hope we
Barbara.
talk again. Thank you.
Thank you both so much.
There you go.